only between your soul and your active consciousness, there are two characters who are in the habit of making a lot of noise, the mind and the vital, thoughts and emotions. And because they make a lot of noise while the soul does not, or rather makes as little as possible, their noise prevents you from hearing the voice of the soul. When you want to know what your soul knows, you have to make an inner effort to be very attentive. And indeed, if you are attentive behind the outer noise of the mind and the vital, you can discern something very subtle, very quiet, very peaceful, which knows and says what it knows. So that's what I gave you, this simple example of the girl, right, whose shorts were lost. Her mind was saying it's here, it's there, but when she was quiet, something within just told her, go here, it's here. So if you are attentive behind the outer noise of the mind and the vital, you can discern something very subtle, very quiet, very peaceful, which knows and says what it knows. But the insistence of the others is so imperious, while that is so quiet that you are very easily misled into listening to the one that makes most noise. The soul is quiet, the mind is noisy, and often you hear the noisy one and you don't hear the softer one. Most often you become aware only afterwards that the other one was right. It did not impose itself, it does not compel you to listen, for it is without violence. The guidance of the soul is very subtle, very soft. If you don't listen to it, it won't insist. It won't be violent like your mind, which will tell you, if you don't do this, just see what will happen to you. There'll be major FOMO, you'll miss out on this, you'll miss out on that. The voice of the soul is not like that. Okay, now to make this whole thing practical, can you identify one narrative in your mind which is constantly making you unhappy? Just raise your hand if you can identify. I'm not going to ask you to share it, of course it's personal, but can you think of one narrative? Can you? One narrative that I am going to be unhappy till this changes. I am going to be whatever, this is like that. It could be a narrative about yourself. No, I'm not asking you to believe it can change. I'm just asking you to identify it, that it is so, and this story goes through my head, this belief about it. See, it can't change, but why do you want it to change? Because suppose there's a person in my life, I have a strong judgment about the person, right? And I'm unhappy so long as this person follows the judgment I have. This person is rude, this person is critical, this person is like that. And so long as the person's like that, how can I be happy? That's the narrative in my head. But again, that narrative is like me, who's blind, touching an elephant, touching the ear of the elephant and thinking the elephant is a fan. So can I allow that I know only a small part of it, and based on that I've built this whole narrative? And as Mother says, all my knowing is ignorant knowledge. So just based on what she said, can I somewhere allow that it may not be completely true? My mind is convinced that it's true, but somewhere there might be an unseen dimension to it which justifies its existence, or justifies it means I won't call it bad anymore. I'll just take it as part of the flow of life. Can I? So maybe I can't with my mind. So we'll do what we did in this morning's class. We'll work with the mantra Om Namah Shivaya. So what is Shiva? Shiva is not just a god sitting on Mount Kailash, though he is also that. Every god has a form aspect and a formless aspect, right? So the formless aspect of Shiva is the stillness within us, right? Is the soul within us, which is always quiet, that Shiva. So when I say Om Namah Shivaya, I'm asking for the grace to surrender the narrative to the Shiva inside, to believe the truth of Shiva more than my narrative. So Sri Aurobindo somewhere writes that the mind is always curious to know, but in the final analysis you need to know only two things. You have a soul within and grace above. If you know this, you're good. Rest is all imagination of your mind anyway. So to surrender my narrative, which is calling this good, that bad, this fortunate, that unfortunate, to the knowing of the soul, to the Shiva within, that Shiva actually means unconditionally auspicious and good, no? So in Hindi we say, or in Sanskrit, Shiv Shiv Bolo, speak auspicious. So Shiva is faith in the eternal auspiciousness and goodness of life, which our soul always has, but which our mind distorts. So with Om Namah Shivaya, we are hoping to get rid of that distortion and go back to that truth. Okay? So let's sit tall. We do the chant in 2 tones. Some of you know it. Those of you who don't, join in as you get the chant. But as you recite it, be very clear that this is the narrative my mind is convinced about. As I chant it, I'm praying for grace to pull belief out of that narrative, because I can't disbelieve it. I need a lot of grace to actually step out of it so that I can disbelieve it. So Om Namah Shivaya, I'm praying for that grace. Namah Shivaya, Shivaya Namah. Just repeat this with me. Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya